ECSI fans, you want to revolutionize your sports investing habits? Allow me to tell you about WagerWire. WagerWire is an app that helps you become a superior bettor by allowing you to sync all your sports books and track all your bets in one place. See your current action, your betting history, and stats. You could also sign up for sports books and collect bonus offers. Follow them at WagerWire on X, as it's the best account on the platform. Head to App Store or Play Store now and search WagerWire and download.
Check this out, we got a great show coming your way.
From the ECSI Sports Studios, the #1 sports information program in America, the Breakfast Bankroll, with your host, the sports broker, Jeff Dawson.
Good morning, sports fans from all around the globe. I am the co-host, Jeff Dawson, East Coast Sports Investors, and welcome to the Tuesday edition, October 21st, of the Breakfast Bankroll. Good friend and colleague, Mr. Scotty Webb, live from Tampa as we talk a quick recap on the 2 Monday night football games. This week's action, we got some college football tonight, tomorrow, and Thursday night. World Series starts on Friday. I'm holding back right now because a little salty. ECSI VIPs, big gut, kicking the cojones. I'll just say that as pre-flop. We had Seattle to win the AL. We had two exactas. Seattle to beat the Dodgers at plus 1900. And we had the Dodgers to beat Seattle at plus 1350. We circled back throughout. Seattle up 2-0, get some Toronto plus 600, and even back in on Sunday if you like Toronto at plus 260 to win the series. But first and foremost, a shout out to our proud sponsors and partnerships. It's WagerWire. Head on over to Google Play, download that app. It is free. And of course, Atlanta Steaks and Seafood .com. Terry Smith does wonders there. Steaks, seafood, chops, appetizers, and wine. Head on over to atlantasteaksandseafood.com. Order today, and you could be grilling as early as Thursday or Friday. So without further ado, let me bring him in. Scotty Webb. What's up, Scott?
Hey, good morning. What is it? This is Tuesday. Of course, I don't know if I told this story, but a couple of days back, I'm out. I got the Halloween stuff out there. So, wind blows, stuff happens, and you got to go out there and, you got to pick stuff back up a little bit and do some different things, even though over the course of doing this for years, we've learned how to keep stuff on the ground better and, and all that stuff. So a little less maintenance. But anyway, I'm out in the yard doing that stuff. I step on a thorn, and I'm like, oh, well, whatever. I stepped on a thorn. So, you reach down and you pull the thorny thing out. And all of a sudden I have all this fire in my foot. I'm like, I don't get it. Like something, it's like you stepped on a caterpillar and a caterpillar was poisonous and now you got poison in your foot. It's kind of what it felt like. Anyway, I'm sitting there going, all right, whatever, it'll go away. Well, it never really went away for a little while. And then I'm like, all right, finally it kind of goes away. And I go on about doing whatever I do. Well, the next morning, Jeff, I wake up and my right hip gets stiff and sore, and I can't hardly walk. But I'm like, whatever. It don't take much to go play poker. So whatever. I no big deal. So I come back home. I'm walking dogs, doing everything. Still not any issue. Well, the next day I couldn't move. It hurt so bad, and it was so stiff and sore. And when you walk, your hip has rotation and motion in it. Like it was restricted. So I'm like, I don't get it. So my wife's like Googling this stuff from being step on a thorn. Well, I guess that's one of the side effects. I never knew that. I never knew that in a million years. Not in a million years. So over the course of the next few days, it sucked and it's been bad. But last couple of days have been better. Well, then last night I couldn't sleep because it hurt. So I've been up, Jeff, since, I don't know. I'm going to guess I fell asleep watching the football games and the baseball games. I fell asleep. I woke back up 1 o'clock, got back in bed, couldn't sleep. So I've been up almost, doing football shit since 1 o'clock this morning until 4 o'clock this morning. So there you go. How about that story?
Well, as I texted you, I've had some morning issues myself. It was through the night as well. So I almost texted you, said, hey, night off. Enjoy your Tuesday off. See you on Thursday. But I figured we could muscle through. So hopefully we both get through this. Before I get to the Monday night NFL games, I'm salty right now, Scotty, and I'm salty. First, congratulations to Toronto, all my friends, colleagues, Andrew McGinnis, Gabe Morency, Cam Stewart, all the Toronto people out there. Congrats! I remember the day Joe Carter is running the bases with a homer. Dave Stewart's of the world. I remember those days. John Olerud with I used to always have the plastic Toronto helmet for John Olerud. But Scotty, I have an issue. Game 7, all hands on deck, 3-1 lead, and you're 7 outs away. And of course, you know what happens with the leadoff walks and stuff. I know you know baseball. You played baseball. You know the major leagues. I had a colleague reach out to me and a friend and goes, man, sorry about the big tickets. We still made a lot of money on the series and in the playoffs so far. Can you please tell me, I know the answer, but I want to hear it from you. Bizzardo. If I'm going down, I want to go down with my best. Can you tell me how in holy bleeping shit that Bizzardo comes out and then gives up the gopher ball to Springer? I don't get it.
Well, I'll explain it to you this way. There was a time when I got called into the office one day, and the manager asked me, we were getting ready to play a series, a big series against another team, and he wanted to set the pitching rotation. I'm the catcher, so he wanted to know my thoughts. And we had a guy that was, your normal ace number 1 guy, but we also had a number 2 guy that was a little bit more of a loose thread kind of guy. A streaky guy. He could go bad, but he could be better than the ace guy when he was gone, right? So the manager is asking me these questions about who do I think should be the starting number 1 guy, because obviously he's going to pitch again, sooner than later the other guy. And the one guy, the ace guy, has been the best guy all season. So I'm sitting there telling him, well, stuff wise, the number 2 guy is better than the number 1 guy right now. Here I am, a young catcher kid telling this manager that. And I said, stamina wise, he can come back. He's going to be able to pitch. So that's what we did. We went with the number 2 guy, not the number 1 guy, because the number 2 guy was coming into the series pitching better than the other guy. So he became our number 1. Goes out, gets beat the first game. And now you got to win. And the ace guy comes out, pitches great, does what he's supposed to, and keeps us in it. But I would tell you that managers seek advice from everywhere they can, and sometimes they're told what to do, not necessarily pitching changes in the middle of a game. But what I would tell you is that the reason I bring up that story is because I think that sometimes people, managers get used to what they've seen most recently and rely on what they've seen most recently instead of what got them there. And, Bizzardo's not, if you put him on a list of relief pitchers and said, hey, I'm going to put in these guys, he's never going to make your list. I mean, just not, you know. So he's out there because that's the routine, that's the standard, and there's a trust factor that manager had in that player. Kind of like I had the trust factor in this number two pitcher over, and the manager said, "Yeah, I kind of like that idea." So it wasn't just me that said it; he went along with it. But I would tell you that I shouldn't say people, the managers and the players of these teams and the people who are on these rosters, they get tied into the "what have you done for me lately" stuff, and it's not always the best case scenario, and it plays out to a point where you get to a point where, like the one thing Dave Roberts doesn't do, he doesn't do that ever. Like he's not tied into that. He'll put Trinan out there tomorrow, and Trinan just, whatever. He's not the greatest guy in the world, but he trusts him. He'll put him out there and he'll stick with him, right? Sasaki, put him back out there again. Those kind of things. Well, Bizzardo's out here, because he earned some respect, and the manager said, "Yeah, I respect what your situation is," but it cost them. So, I don't know. I don't know how else other to answer the question other than to say it kind of with the story that I gave is that I do believe that there's intention behind the decisions, and the intention basically is that Bizzardo earned the trust of that manager, and he put him in that spot because he thought he would succeed, and obviously he didn't.
And I think the other aspect is I don't want Munoz to get up, sit. In other words, I don't want to bring Munoz in the bottom of the seventh to get one out and then to sit and then to get 3 outs into the eighth and then also the ninth, because now we're still up 3-1, and he's going to have to then go again for the ninth. My point very simply is it's all hands on deck. I ain't going down with Bizzardo. I'm sorry. I'm not. I don't care if you figured out you wanted to bring in a starter for that 1 out. It was a mistake. They paid. They got to sit in their shit all year. And again, it's something that I wouldn't have done. I know that for a fact. If I wanted to, I would have brought Munoz in, get that out, get me through the eighth, and then even figure out the ninth. But congrats to Toronto. Some numbers came out. Dodgers minus 210. I've seen some Dodgers minus 220. Jays have home field. Starts on Friday. Friday, Saturday, travel day, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday in LA. Travel day Thursday, Friday, Saturday if needed. Number a little short to me, just in my eyes initially. I thought the Dodgers would be a bigger favorite. I can see now all the Dodger haters going to gather up some fan interest, beat the Dodgers. And you know what? I think you're going to get some fun games because the frontline pitching, you got some major league big game experience with Bieber and Max. You got Gosman, and then of course the wild card with your Savage. But you look at the front four of the Dodgers, and they just been pitching lights out. And listen, the fun part is if the Jays roll out the ball and say first 1 to 9, we could have one of those 9 to 7 slugfests here, Scotty.
Well, all these games will be a little different, and certainly, if the Dodgers were the home team, meaning they had 4 games at home, I think the number would be bigger on the line. So I agree that there might be some kind of different matchups here and these teams don't play each other that often, so it's not like they've seen each other a ton. So I think as you kind of look through and the thing that dominates to me is, the Dodgers played the Reds. They swept the Reds. Then the Dodgers played the Phillies. They lost once. I think they were 3-1 against them. and then they go play whoever they played just a minute ago,
Brewers.
the Brewers, and they sweep the Brewers. So they've lost one time, and the reason they've only lost one time is because the starting pitchers have allowed 0 to 2 runs almost every single game, and they go deep in the games. So I don't care if you're the 1954 Yankees or whoever, you're not going to be able to go and match that pitch for pitch. You're not going to be able to match it. And these games we saw in the American League where some of these scores were up there, and even yesterday home runs flying out of the stadium. I don't think you're going to see a whole lot of that, only because the Dodgers have turned on the starting rotation, and their starting rotation has responded to the degree in which they're just not hittable. So, and as that turns out, and we'll see how it goes. I also like the idea that Dave Roberts has all kinds of playoff management experience running these teams and doing this stuff and making the calls to the bullpen, and the Blue Jays do not. So I guess what I'm saying is I think there could be some competitive games. I think there could be some fun spots. I think there can be some great stories and some entertaining at-bats, but at the same time, I say all that stuff. If you don't bet the Dodgers, you're going to be betting. You're going to lose your money.
Congrats, George Springer, UConn. Guy gets drilled in the kneecap a couple days ago, and he could have been done. I thought the kneecap shattered. I heard that live, and I was like, "OMG!" But hats off to him. Nice to see Vladdy there. Bo Bichette said he'll be ready. And I said this to a good friend. Enjoy this year's World Series. Enjoy next year's baseball season, because there will be a long delay in the following year because they're going to be holding out. So we'll get to that. Me and Scotty got a long time to talk about that. 2 Monday Night Football games last night. What did I see? A Detroit defense looked pretty good on defense. Jamar Gibbs, thank you very much. Had him in one spot in my high stakes fantasy. Scored almost 200 points for the week. Thank you, Jamar. Detroit at home, different beast. Crowd was in it from the first snap. You could see the Bucs injuries. No Bucky Irvin. Mike Evans now probably done 6 to 8 weeks possibly for the year. Collarbone and something else happened. Ibuka wasn't 100%. Kate Otten was his favorite target. There, and in the nightcap, a snoozer. I was just reading a tweet, between 4 turnovers by Darnold, a defensive score, a fumble, blah, blah, blah. They still win and they still cover. Houston has problems. Their offensive line is putrid. No fear of a running attack. It's Nico Collins in a cloud of dust. C.J. Stroud's pocket presence is putrid. They're going to win by defense and defense alone. It's a team that I see is leaking severe oil, of course, in the state of Texas, no pun intended, but a team that's not going to be doing much this year as well.
Yeah, we talked about that. I didn't know what to do with that Buccaneers game. We said, oh, there's going to be lots of points, and then what they do in the first half, they get like hardly any points. So it didn't surprise me. I guess what really surprised me, well, I shouldn't say it that way. It's not the right way to say it. Baker had a bad day, and if he has a bad day, that team's not going to win because he's got to carry a lot, especially with some of the players around him that are either injured, not playing at 100%, or out. So he's got to fill a lot of voids, and the Detroit secondary is bad. They're bad, meaning that they're hurt. So they had a lot of guys back in there, but they didn't have anything to challenge them with. So yeah, shame on me. I should have been on Detroit in that game, but everybody and their brother was on that, and I hate to do that. I hate to jump on Detroit when everybody and their brother's on Detroit. The other game I felt pretty comfortable with was Seattle. I know a lot of people like Houston in that spot, but I look, Houston, until they become scary on offense of any sort or can threaten anybody on that sort, they're just a team that plays good defense, I'm not sure that their head coach is a great in-game management coach either. They lost their offensive coordinator, was the guy that made them. Joe Brady, I think, was their offensive coordinator there. I can't remember. And then he went off to do other things for other teams. And he was the guy that no, it wasn't him. It was somebody got to be a head coach in the NFL somewhere. It was he? I don't remember what his name is. Anyway, he's the guy that got their offense going when 2 years ago when they made the playoffs. But at this point in time, they're a shambles of that team, and really they should be a lot better than where they have been. They're not developing the talent. The coaching staff's not doing what they need to do. A lot of times people forget that if you're a coach of a team, part of of that is what you see on the field in terms of the product X's and O's and game plan design, and if you're a baseball manager, pitching changes and all that kind of stuff. But the reality is the other part that you don't see is you've got to develop talent. And if you can't develop the talent, and it'll start to show. And because you can't just go in and take over a program and then, with that staff and talent that's already there, make them great. And then when your next group of kids comes in to replace that and you got nothing, what kind of real coach were you? You're not a coach. You're just a game plan manager, right? So I think there's some of that going on with trying to figure out what Houston really is and what their general management is like. I think that ultimately they could be a good team. They could be a good franchise. They don't play in the strongest division. They should be able to compete, but I don't think they're any good.
Yeah, and again, they got the Iowa State, like three rookies from Iowa State, Dalton Schultz, and again, Nico. Nico dropped a big first down play where he had open field too busy worrying about his celebration for after a first down there. But again, hats off to the Lions. Hats off to Seattle. Donald, not one of his better games, but again, the NFC West, real tight. It's going to be a fun race between Seattle 49ers and the Rams there. Scotty, we got two games in college tonight. Kennesaw State at Florida International, Western Kentucky at Louisiana Tech. Wednesday, Middle Tennessee State against Delaware. Geez, that's 3 weeks, I think, out of the last 4. I've seen Delaware on TV now. Missouri State and New Mexico State. And then on Thursday, we have an NFL game, Minnesota and the Chargers. And Thursday night, South Alabama, Georgia State. And then on Friday, North Texas, Charlotte, California, Virginia Tech, Boise State, Nevada. Again, we'll be back on Thursday and Friday in Pocket Place. We'll be breaking down some games on Game on Paper. Of any of those, do you want to pull one up on Game on Paper to break down for people?
Well, yeah, let's do the Western Kentucky Louisiana Tech game tonight. Just because I'm trying something a little bit new to this week. Not that I need to do anything new, but what I'm looking at, I found a guy that published all of the models that you can get from everywhere, and I didn't realize that Jeff Stegren's model is actually pretty good because it's got a rank of how the models work. And just so you know, all you people that pay for the CBS Sports Line one, it's ranked second to last. It's like the second to worst one. So when you're following models and the predictions of models and so forth, make sure you follow the right stuff. Don't follow the wrong stuff. So this model here, the reason I bring it up is because Sagren's score in tonight's game for Western Kentucky and Louisiana Tech is 32-16 for Louisiana Tech. So that's 16-point win, and they're only a 3.5-point favorite. So that tends to sit there and go, how did that happen? Well, the first thing I can tell you is on Games on Paper, when I looked at this game before, one of the things is I guess I didn't realize that Louisiana Tech's defense is 35th in all of college football. They're a minus 0.12 on EPA on defense, and Western Kentucky's offense ranks 30 or 65th, so they should be able to contain that. Where I'm having the problem with this rating, by the way, is if you look at Louisiana Tech's offense, there's 135 schools. They rank 132 on offense out of 135. So, and they're going against Western Kentucky's defense that's 28th. Now, you've got to take into effect, and you got to have the countermeasures in college football. And the countermeasures that I'm talking about is, okay, well, is this defense as good as Ohio State? Well, no. And well, how do you know that? Well, because Western Kentucky strength of schedule is 132 out of 135. They played like the easiest bunch of banjos there are. So that deteriorates that number quite drastically, actually. And Louisiana Tech isn't the greatest schedule, 105. So what I like to look at to help marginalize a little bit of this, it's called yards per point margin. I look at that number. So yards per point. Why don't you look at yards per play? Why don't you look at other things because that stuff's baked into some of this other stuff. Yards per point. The reason I look at it, that measures efficiency. So in other words, how many points are you scoring based on the yards you're getting? So it measures efficiency, and that can tell you a little bit about a football team. So Western Kentucky yards per point margin is a positive 1. And for Louisiana Tech, it's positive 5. Well, when you have a 4-point differential there, a lot of times you're going to see a spread that's probably pushing 7 to 10. So I think theoretically, this could be a spot where you go and say, hey, this might be a good spot for the home team, Louisiana Tech, tonight. The problem that I have with a lot of this stuff is when I break these games down on games on paper and I do stuff and I look at some of the smaller schools, sometimes it doesn't really predict things out carryover wise as well, because there's a lot of nonsense that happens in these schools that have 132 strength of schedules where they haven't played anybody, and it's all just craziness, and and the quarterback play is ridiculous and stuff like that. So I think Kenny White's got the game 28-26, Louisiana Tech. Bill Connolly's got it 25-22. Sagrin was the one that kind of jumped off the page at me, 32-16. I think that does favor Louisiana Tech. I think Louisiana Tech has played slightly better schedule. They played. I think they played LSU or somebody like that. They played. Let me pull it up. They played LSU. The score of that game was in LSU. It was 23-7. That's not terrible. So when you look at and New Mexico State's turned out to be a pretty decent team. They put up 49 on that team. And they beat Southern Miss, and Southern Miss is not a bad team. So I like the idea. They just got slaughtered by Kennesaw State. That's a bad loss. So I think even though I said their offense is terrible, look at how many points they're putting up: 30, 49, 20, 24, 30. I mean, they're putting up some points. So I think that's a pretty good spot for them, maybe at home, especially off of that "what have you done for me lately" look, where they got beat by Kennesaw State, who's terrible. So I think this might be a good spot, Jeff, for them. I would tell you that their biggest concern that they have, the quarterback, between two quarterbacks, they've been sacked 14 times, and the other quarterback's been sacked. They got three quarterbacks. The other quarterback's been sacked 3 times. Their offensive line's terrible. 17 sacks. That's not very good outcomes for their offense. So anyway, I think that's one that kind of stood out to me as as something that was interesting. I don't understand that Delaware game. If you pull up the Delaware game, Jeff, on Games on Paper, I think that's tomorrow. If you pull up that game, Delaware and Middle Tennessee. Now, Middle Tennessee is very, very bad. They're just a horrible team. You can see that Delaware, when Delaware's on offense, their EPA per pass ranks 50 and their EPA per run ranks 47. Available yards is 22. Third down success is good at 24. Average third down distance is good at 45. And the defense for Middle Tennessee, they rank 130 out of 135 schools. I don't see them really slowing down this team. Delaware's got a little bit of a problem on defense. They rank 115, but they're only going to face Middle Tennessee's offense. It's 107. And this number in this game has been bet down. I think it opened at 10. On Monday morning, it was 10. Right now, it's 8.5. So I think you're probably catching a little bit of value here. Bill Conley has a 15-point win for Delaware. Kenny's got a 10-point win, and Sagrin's got a 15-point win. So probably 2 touchdowns, but that's pretty close to the number. And these are weird schools and weird things happen. So I'm not sure I'm totally buying in on that particular thing. So I'm probably not going to do a lot on these games. I might play on a piece of beer money just to have something to do. And there's no baseball to watch tonight, so gotta watch something. And I might watch Louisiana Tech play. I don't know. I mean, it's crazy. Now I do have some stuff. I've already run the model. I say run the model. I go through this and have some select things that come out. And yards per point's my guide. And when I see some big disparities there, I start to look at it. And I've already run through 15, 16 games on paper through my AI with Grok and the model and all that stuff. I've got game scores, predictions, and kind of ranks of where I'm going to put some of these things. So we can go over any of that whenever you're ready. That's probably a Thursday show, but there's a lot there in terms of what I'm looking at. And the one thing I will tell you is don't look past this UConn team. UConn plays Rice this week. Rice is terrible. The line is 10. The AI predicted score was 31-10 UConn. So and the numbers all verify. They all come out. It's real good. Just throwing it out there, and that's kind of one of those another smaller school kind of thing. The other one I will suggest to tell everybody is don't write off LSU this weekend. Just don't write off LSU this weekend.
Yeah, and it's funny because it's not a great slate this week. I just did a quick look down the board for some headliners on Saturday. Baylor at Cincinnati. Indiana is now 26-point favorites against UCLA. How the mighty have fallen. They were never mighty yet, by the way. BC, 26-point underdogs at Louisville. Oh, by the way, next week hosts Notre Dame. What else? SMU, Wake Forest was interesting. Mississippi, Oklahoma, probably the game of the weekend. Oklahoma right now, 4.5. Ole Miss coming off the loss to Georgia. Nebraska looking for.
Let me ask you this question, just before we get going. There was a question that I saw that came up, and I don't know how to answer it. So last week, Nebraska's on the road, and we talked about this on yesterday's show. Nebraska's on the road -7, -7.5, got up to -9, got down to -6.5, but I think it closed at -7.5, right? On the road at Minnesota. Look what their line is to this week. They're -7.5 at home against Northwestern. Figure that out. Meaning that if you're going to give them over 7.5 on the road against a tougher team like Minnesota, why isn't that a good bet this week? I'm just throwing it out there. I mean, I haven't looked at it.
I'm telling you why. I'm telling you why. And like we were on Minnesota Friday. Once once speculation comes out, once the cat's out of the bag, and the coach gets potentially named to be leaving, he loses the locker room. So you would know right away last Friday if Matt pulled him in and says, "Hey guys, I'm not going anywhere. This is where I'm staying." Obviously, by their showing, especially in the second half, he didn't do that. So now you got a Nebraska team with 2 losses, and now their season on the line. And I think Vegas has that soft 7 there because they're looking for Nebraska money. Northwestern, don't forget, went into Penn State a few weeks ago and won. They have one on the road. They're one of those teams that it just every year they find a way to upset 1 or 2 teams. Wouldn't be shocked if Nebraska laid another egg, if not lost here, Scotty.
Yeah, it's a tough one for me, just line wise, to figure it out. So that one was a tough one. I think here's another school not to sleep on that I think everybody's sleeping on: Temple. Don't sleep on Temple. Temple won again last week. I was, we've had them. I've had them on this show before on a spot. I don't remember which one it was. They're only 6-point favorites against Tulsa. Do you know how bad Tulsa is? I mean, seriously, do you know how bad Tulsa is? And do you know how halfway decent Temple is? The model and I come up with an agreement that it's 27-13 Temple in this game, and they only got to cover 6. So just food for thought. We can cover some of these things as we go along. But Temple keeps showing up for me, so I just wanted to throw that one out there.
Texas, Mississippi State, Texas 7-point favorites. As you talked about, LSU. A&M opened up 2.5 now, 3-point favorites at LSU. There is some rumblings that the natives are getting restless in LSU there. So I don't know how long.
Here's a good stat for you. In the couple of years that Brian Kelly's been there, do you know how many times he's lost a night game at LSU?
No, and that is huge. Huge.
He hasn't lost ever. Hasn't lost one. So when you start to think about what that indicates for Texas A&M, and with sight unseen, I didn't watch them play much except for last week. I thought they were a lot better than what they were. If you're going to give up 41 points to Arkansas, which I get it, Arkansas's got a pretty good offense, but at the same time they got a pretty good offense. They're not really that great. LSU's defense is a lot better than Arkansas. So, this is going to be a battle to the end for that game. So that's why I said don't sleep on LSU this weekend.
No, and been waiting for Texas A&M to stumble. They cracked the top 3 this week. So again, they've been just battle tested. They've been winning all along. Myself and Scotty will be back again Thursday and Friday in Pocket Plays. World Series doesn't get started until Friday. Some small college football games today, tomorrow, and Thursday. One NFL game Thursday night. Chargers host, I think we said, the Vikings. Chargers team decimated on both sides. Got manhandled by the Colts. Must win for both teams. Be interesting. I'll throw this out to you. Mr. O'Connell pulled the plug real quick with McCarthy. Now, I don't know if it's practice habits, high ankle sprain. I mean, out for weeks, and he's just been stiff arming. We know Carson Wentz long-term is not the answer. Good defense. The Eagles kind of took matters into their own hands with a great performance there. Both teams leaking oil here. I would assume a sense of urgency on the Chargers side as well, as we know they don't have a home field advantage there. Would you be surprised? Now, does he want to buy one more week or an extra 10 days? You think he's going to limp Wentz out there, or does he grab the kid between the 2 ears and says, it's make or break time?
Well, we just talked about development of players. And I think the kid needs more development, to be honest. I I have not seen anything other than one quarter of play from him that even remotely looks like he should be an NFL quarterback. Like, nothing against him or Michigan or anywhere else that he came from or any of the other stuff that's going on in his world. But, you know, the Cleveland Browns asked Dylan Gabriel just not to turn the ball over and do stuff and let their defense win the game. Well, Minnesota needs to do that if that's what they're going to do with this kid. Carson Wentz can at least provide some sort of offense. He can read defenses. He knows what to do with the ball. Now, whether or not he can do it or not, it's two different stories. So my opinion is that as long as Minnesota stays in games, plays competitive, wins games, I don't think you're going to see McCarthy. Now, if they start to lose and they need a jump start, and the kid with some energy coming in, maybe that's a different thing. But, I think they're going to play Wentz out until Wentz can't do anything, and then they'll put McCarthy back in. And then give him a whole season, because who knows what's going on behind the scenes. Hopefully there's a lot of development going on there. And I tend to think that the guy in Minnesota and the guy that's in Seattle are developing players and developing teams, and you can see it, right? So I tend to think that that's probably going to do well for this quarterback and have him be better as they come. I'm super shocked, to be honest, at how Bo Nix has not done anything this year. He's looked worse this year than he did last year. And from what I hear and what I'm seeing, there's a lot of things saying, hey, the play calling's been a lot different, and the stuff that they're doing is a lot different. They got him on tape, so they're trying to prevent certain things from happening, which is fine. But you got to make adjustments. You got to do different things as a head coach. So Peyton's got to get his stuff together to help this kid. So development of staff and development of the players, I think, is one of the most important things as to evaluating some talent in the NFL, especially young kids. And McCarthy needs some.
The Bo Nix situation, the offense, I put a tweet up when they were down 13-0. I said they've been reading last year's press clips, playing with house money. No one expected anything. The last 6 weeks just playing, Bo Nix throwing out the ball and just throwing up the high lobs. And the offense was cooking with Crisco. Everyone bought in. They drank the orange Kool-Aid. Here they got so many weapons. They draft R.J. Harvey. They got the number one ranked defense on paper. This was the Broncos. Yeah, they were knocking off the Chiefs. And what I noticed again on Sunday is the majority of Bo Nix's passes is fake the handoff and roll to the right. What happens when you roll to the right? You cut off half the field unless you're going to throw the ball across your body and the other side, which usually turns into interceptions. I'm going to blame right now the regression. I'm going to blame Sean Payton. I think he's getting too cute. He's got a great defense. Pound the rock with Dobbins. Use Harvey in space. And keep Bo Nix in the damn pocket. Not that you can't do a rollout right, rollout left. I get that. But not when 75% of your passes are him rolling out right, throwing on 1 foot. It's like I was going to say a CYO, but that's, the softball league. But it's like, rec ball. Look at, and I'm going to compare the two. Look at what Drake May is doing in the last month. Sitting in the pocket, reading the first read, second read, third read, making good decisions. If they're not open, pulling the ball down, running for a first down, sliding when possible. He's had 2 times gone into the blue tent the last 2 weeks. And this past week, he had the double hit on the head. And I can't believe they let him back out, but that's for another show, Scotty.
Yeah, that's a perfect example of developmentally getting kids going, Look, I'm 58 years old. These kids are 20-something, they're 30 at the most. Most of these kids are younger than that. And when I'm 20 years, 25 years old out of college and stuff, man, I'm just, the one thing you are is you can't be stopped, right? I mean, you're just Superman when you're young. You're healthy and good and all that stuff. You may not know anything in the world, and you don't always claim to know all that. But there are people there to guide you. And if they're not there for you to guide, you go off the rails. And you don't know how to get on the rails because you've not been there unless somebody helps you do it. And I think that the NFL is a perfect situation for some of these kids to either get it or I guess move on, because they're either gonna get right in a certain amount of time, or their time's up. And I hope that some of these kids get a better chance than others to really truly develop. And McCarthy hasn't had much playing experience yet. He got hurt his first year, so I mean, he's got an attitude, right? I mean, he's got the ego that says, I'm gonna get this shit, put all the shoulder and all the stuff on me. I get all of that, but boy, you better know what you're doing, because it's a different animal in the NFL than it is in college football. And he's not ready. And I think he's shown he's not ready. And, maybe Drake May wasn't ready either, but he's developing and growing and developing and growing. He certainly looks like one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL now. So depending upon who you're with and what your developmental status looks like, and or some of these kids aren't coachable anymore. I remember back in the day when we were young, it was, you listen to the damn coach, and if he tells you to go kick your neighbor, you go kick the neighbor. That's what you do, because that's what the coach told you to do. And they're not going to tell you to do something wrong, right? And in today's world, I think you get a lot of the kids think they know more than coaches, and they know more this and that, and they've been taught this from their mom and their dad, or they've been taught this from some specialized other coach, and they've been taught blah, blah, blah. They're not going to listen. I think there's a lot of that. Now, I don't think that that's necessarily totally incorrect either. I think there needs to be a blend of that, because there's not always one right answer. But at the same time, there does need to be a willingness to get better, a willingness to learn. And most of these NFL kids are supposed to be like that, but I don't think they all are anymore. I think today's youth has grown up in a society in a way where they're a lot more independent, and they want to show their independence in their own thought. And sometimes it's embarrassing.
Myself and Scotty will be back Thursday and Friday around 9:15. In Pocket Plays, we'll break down again the college football for this week. Not a lot of big headlining games. There's some marquee games. And we'll talk some NFL, of course, on Thursday. I'll be a guest with Andrew. Actually, no, I'm sorry. Excuse me. Bringing Andrew on here in about 10 minutes, 15 at the tops. Talk some Jays. Obviously, congrats to Andrew and the Jays. Talk some NHL and a little CFL. So for myself, Jeff Dawson at EC Sports Invest, the one and only Scotty Webb at Webby20MLB. We wish everyone a blessed day. Enjoy yourselves, behave, and we'll be right back, and stay tuned.